or a different day. Recording in progress. We like to hear that. Okay, so let me tell you what we're doing. We are finishing a few what I call very, very strong teachings in the sixth chapter of Pirke Avot. After tonight, we will have completed 95, 96% of Pirke Avot. There's some parts that really just don't translate to anything other than Jews and Judaism. Some parts that don't translate well into a universal message. So I left those out. But 95, 96%, by the time we're done tonight, we will have covered. Next week, I mentioned in weeks past, next week, I'm going to take a look at my perhaps five or six favorite teachings that we did of all six chapters. I will probably ask you, can you name a teaching or two that most impacted you while we've been studying Pirkei Avot? And then we'll take a couple of week break at least for Passover. And then we'll decide what, if, when, how, and all that. So this is where we are today to complete the sixth chapter. And yeah, so uh, here's where we are today. First of all, today, uh, not for me anymore because it's already after sundown. Today is the first day of the first month of Nisan. Nisan, which was a name given to this month when the Jews returned from Babylonian captivity. They brought with them some of these month names, and one of them was called Nisan. The word Nes in Hebrew means miracle, and there were a lot of miracles that led up to the Exodus from Egypt. Uh, 10 plagues, the splitting of the Red Sea, all that. So the month is called Nisan, and today, for everybody else but me, it's still the first day of Nisan. Now it's already sundown. It's the second day of Nisan, but basically 2 weeks from last night is the first Seder outside of Israel and the only Seder in Israel. We only have one. So just wanted you to know about that. So now I'm looking, if you have the text in front of you, if you'd like to look at it, chapter 6, Mishnah or teaching number 2. It says here, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi taught. He taught the following lesson. Each and every day, a bat kol, that's in Hebrew, a bat kol. The word kol means a voice. Bat means daughter of a voice. Now, what could be more nebulous than that? Each and every day, the daughter of a voice would emanate from the mountain of Chorev, which is another name for Mount Sinai where the Torah was given. And this daughter of a voice proclaimed, woe to them, to the people, because of their insult to the Torah. Very interesting. And those who are not involved with the study of the Torah are to be rebuked. As it says in Proverbs 11:22, great imagery coming up, like a golden ring in a swine's snout is a beautiful woman who turns away from a a good judgment. So a Jew, he's speaking specifically of Jewish people, but it could be of any faith follower who does not stay within the faith, does not practice the faith, etc., is compared to a swine with a ring in its snout. A very interesting imagery. How the woman can be very, very beautiful, or the man can be very, very beautiful, but if they're not practicing their tradition and observing their laws, etc., then it's like a pig with a ring in its snout. It 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 uh, it it lowers their status, you know. Now, I've never eaten ham, never saw a pig, frankly, but sometimes when I see pigs, on FaceTube and how they're raised and whatever, I have to admit my first reaction is, "Ooh," you know. They're in the mud, they eat all kinds of stuff, and the snout and it's hanging and it's drooling, and Okay, that's my impression. I'm aware that there are other impressions of pork and pig, etc. But what I wanted to focus on is this idea of what does it mean, the daughter of a voice? So our rabbis have understood it as being an echo from Mount Sinai reverberates. Ten Commandments were given 3,330 some odd years ago, and yet echoes from Mount Sinai still reverberate throughout the generations. What was given back then, but the words and the experience still reverberates even down to us. And that's what most agree is a bat kol, like a voice from Sinai that's still emanating and still echoing, says, woe to them that don't follow their faith tradition. They've been given a faith tradition. They've been shown the beauty of it, and yet they absent themselves from it. So, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he's the one that taught this teaching. He was one of the land of Israel's most prominent sages around the year 300. He was a great scholar. He enjoyed wealth and property and a household of royal eminences. One book described it. He was deeply involved in community affairs. He taught in Lod. Lod is 10 minutes from Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. And then he taught in Tiberias, which is in the Galilee. It's about a 2-hour drive from where I am in Efrat. So this idea of a bat kol, the voice of God keeps emanating and reverberating from Mount Sinai, as I mentioned, and this revelation is ongoing. It's ongoing. Um, in the second century, a debate concerning the status of a new type of oven. This is a classic example of what is the role of this echoing, emanating message from Sinai. It says in the Talmud, in one of the tractates called Baba Metzia, pages 59a through b. This story takes place in the second century. There was a debate concerning the status of a new type of oven. Here we go again. It was a new, innovative oven. Thanks for not asking me what was new about it, what was innovative about it. The Talmud doesn't describe the facets of that. It just says that there was a debate concerning the status of a new type of oven. It was brought to the Sanhedrin of the time as to what is the status of this new type of oven. Can it receive impurity from things put in it or around it? Whatever that means. Can it receive impurity or is it impervious to any kinds of impurity as an oven that has heat, transfers heat, etc.? So they go to the Sanhedrin to see what is the story. How do they treat this new type of oven? So there's a rabbi, Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. He argues that it's usable, while the others say that it can re invite impurity. So that's a pretty basic kind of a debate. It either does take in impurity or it does not, and then it has its consequences if it does or it doesn't. Eliezer's colleagues are convinced of his arguments, um, where he says that it is impure. And people are convinced by his argument that it has that property, it has that quality. And then Rabbi Ben Levi, he says, if I'm right, if I'm correct in my assessment, that let the trees give a sign. And all of a sudden, the Talmud reports a tree uproots itself and leaps from the ground. Now, if I was standing there, I would say, okay, I think Rabbi Joshua ben Levi is right. I mean, how often does that happen? He said, if I'm right, let this happen, and it did. Except the Jewish people are not always easily convinced. And he said, if I'm right, let an irrigational canal be a sign. And all of a sudden, that canal, the water in that canal flows backwards. Well, if the thing with the tree didn't get me, I would say this would say, I think the guy's right. And then he said, if I'm right, may the walls of the study hall prove that I'm right by beginning to fall. And what happened? They began to fall. The walls of the study hall began to fall. But there was a Rabbi, Joshua ben Hananiah, who rebukes the walls of the study hall from falling. And because of that rebuke, they stay where they are. So they're kind of not standing firm, they're slanted, and that's the way they stay. In a final attempt, by now, I would have been bought, and all these examples I would say, it sounds to me like God is behind him because he's responding to all of these tests. Um, so at that point, uh, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi says, let God prove to me that I'm right. And then God speaks to the people in a bat kol. God speaks to the people with an echoing voice from Sinai, saying that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is correct. He's right. He's right. So it's amazing what Rabbi Joshua responds. Again, I would have been convinced 1,000%. God himself is saying he's right. So you would say it's not God himself, it's an echo of God from Sinai. It's still emanating. Rabbi Joshua responds, that's very interesting that God got involved in this, if that's the way we want to look at it. But the Torah is not in heaven, as it says towards the end of the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses tells the people, the Torah is not in heaven that you have to climb a mountain and get it, namely, like I had to do, to climb the mountain of Sinai and get it for you. He continues in the end of Deuteronomy, the Torah is not across the sea, like you have to swim to it to go get it, but rather it's in your mouth and in your heart to do them. That's how accessible Torah or a faith-based text is. You don't have to climb, you don't have to swim, you don't have to exert yourself. You have to have a desire for it, and it's in your mouth to practice it. It's in your heart, it's in your mind, it's in your brain to practice it. You don't have to do a lot of work for it. So that's his answer, that the Torah is not in heaven. So what does God say according to this episode in the Talmud? God laughed and stated, my children have defeated me.
Hmm.
So we have a friend who every time they feel quizzical about something, they say, what? Like they say the word this twice. What is this? God himself seems to be testifying that Rabbi Joshua and Levi is right. What is this stuff? You're just going to ignore these amazing miracles that happened exactly when he called for them? If I could do that, wow, I think I'd be on I think I'd be on the Tonight Show. Is that still on? Oprah, I don't know if she's still on. Maybe she's on her own network with a talk show, but I think that's a pretty convincing set of circumstances. So interestingly enough, I'm looking in my books and I have a book called Not in Heaven. Not in Heaven. The Nature and Function of Halacha, of Jewish law. So what is the interpretation of this bat kol, excuse me, this echo that's still emanating from heaven that seems to prove that Rabbi Joshua ben Levi is right, but no, this law is not in heaven. So some interpret it as saying that law is a work of human activity and endeavor. God set down the values and the principles that we need to deal with in the Ten Commandments, and now it's our human job to parse it out and to unpack it. And that's where actual people come in. God sets you the standards. Here's what you need to do. Here's the mission, etc. And then God kind of have to step out of the way and let the humans parse it out. Um, Also, some say that this is a lesson in following the majority. The majority says, no, it's not that way. God says it is that way. So here's a lesson in following the majority. There's another lesson some try to develop, that revelation is an ongoing process. It's ongoing. More than that, I don't know that I can be more precise. It's an interesting concept that it is not in heaven. God sets the standards. Here's the rules and regulations. Uh, you go into a zoo and there's 15 things. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And now the and Recreation Committee expects you on your own to not do that. Yeah, you're not being followed by somebody from the park administration to see if you do or don't. The assumption is you know the rules, now go do it. So there's an overriding body that sets the rules and the mission, and then there's an expectation that the humans will carry it out, and that's our role. It's not God's role to also do that. He doesn't have to monitor, although he does, but he doesn't have to monitor once he's set aside the principles. That's the human job. So, yeah. Any comment about that? Strange, easy to understand. Yeah, I get it, you know. Or what? What? Bob, you wanted
I
to say
think that
something? Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Brooke.
Go ahead, Brooke.
I was just gonna say that the thing that really jumped out to me was the
Oh,
golden nose ring. So it's golden. It's not silver. It's not bronze
oh,
or anything of that nature. It's a
yes.
highly prized thing he put on a swine, and the lady is beautiful, and but she doesn't have reason within her head. So that kind of just really jumped out at me. I guess.
The fact that she has a golden ring.
Yeah,
Interesting.
very
That's a
prized,
facet I didn't think of. But what were you saying?
very prized possession. On a pig. Why would you do that?
Yeah, right. Right. There's just some things you physically can beautify,
Hmm.
unless the pig has some inner beauty
Right.
besides being good at a barbecue and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. So, Bob, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the story you just quoted with the different rabbis,
Yes.
and may this happen if I'm right, all that. That story is quoted very much by Christians to show the the terrible mindset of rabbis.
Oh, let's
Uh,
hear this.
yeah, that they think they're greater than God, and even if God says it's right, it doesn't matter if God thinks it's right because the rabbis can change and make it whatever they want to be right. So that story is quoted by Christians trying to show why Judaism is a wrong faith.
Yeah.
And but the moral of the story is God gave man a job. He gave us the law, the statutes and ordinance and everything, and it's
Yeah.
our job to carry it out. It's not
Yes.
his job to carry it out. It's our job. And so to help them understand, it's not saying that they can override God's laws or change God's laws. It's just that God gave us a responsibility, and it's not God's responsibility to do our responsibility.
Right. I don't think it means to intimate that God is after the Ten Commandments, God left the world and here you guys run it. Good luck to you. I don't think it means that, that God disappears and has nothing else to do.
Right,
He does, but in this area, he has to give the humans a certain trustability that they're going to interpret things in the best way possible for the glory of God, etc. But I've heard what you said. I've heard from some Christians who say that anything rabbinic, whether it's commentary, the Midrash, Talmud, things of that nature, that I've heard it called evil.
yeah.
It's evil because it takes away from God being the. Like, where do the rabbis come in? You know? And honestly, sometimes it does sound like the rabbis present themselves as very, very self-important. I don't necessarily ascribe that as a negative kind of a thing. They're very confident that they understand through the various rules of how to interpret the Torah, and those rules are in every prayer book right at the beginning of the morning service. Rabbi Yishmael says these are the 13 principles followed by the rabbis by which we interpret the Torah, because the Torah is not always clear everywhere, and there are rules that apply to how to interpret it. So that's something that God leaves up to the people. He has other things that he's involved with, but anyway, so I thought that was very, very interesting. Uh, Almost to put God on the shelf and say, you did a lot of nice miracles with the tree and the river and everything else and the walls, but you weren't invited to this meeting, kind of. You know what I'm saying? This is not who invited you to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here comes another enigmatic statement, and it's enigmatic coming from an observant Jew. Okay. Um, in I think also in Mishnah number 2 of chapter 6, it has this teaching. Um, it reminds us that the words of the Ten Commandments, letters of the Ten Commandments, they were charut in Hebrew, engraved on the tablets, charut. And you saw that in the movie The Ten Commandments, if you ever seen it. God has his, I am the Lord, and then the letters, and they engrave themselves on the tablet. So that's the word charut, engraved, literally. Then the rabbis come in with their teaching. They say, don't call it charut. Don't read the word charut, rather read it as cherut. Don't read it as engraved, but rather read it as liberating. That the words on the Ten Commandments were not just engraved, but they also gave liberation and freedom. And then it continues to say that there is no freer person in the world than somebody engaged in the study of the Torah or in one's faith text. So what does that mean? Nobody is freer than the one engaged in the study of the Torah. I'll tell you how it hits me as an observant Jew. Um, I would say, really, the study and practice of the Torah makes you free. As an observant Jew, I would say Judaism sounds like and often feels like a very circumscribed, narrow, restricted, confining. I mean, think of all the things 613 commandments, 365 are thou shalt nots. You think of Shabbat. Somebody's more spiritually oriented thinks of Shabbat as, wow, it's a great opportunity you have prepared meals. You don't have to potchkey around with meals on Shabbat. You just have to heat it up. Great opportunity for study, for worship, the family together. There's no phones, no technology. It's a Charlie Kirk Shabbat. And it's just a pleasure. During the warm days, we walk over to our neighbors. We don't take the car. And we just join the friendship, the camaraderie, the neighborhoodliness. It's just beautiful. So seen from that perspective, it has all that. But if a person is oriented in a different way, they would say, oh my gosh, 25 hours. I can't get, there's no iPhone. I can't smoke. I can't drink. I can't drive. I can't. Can you do this? No, I can't do that either. It sounds more constraining, confining, restrictive. So to tell me that one who is engaged, engrossed in the study of the Torah, there's nobody freer than that? As an observant Jew, I would say you could look at it, there's nobody more jailed than that. Do you understand my point? it sounds like it sounds confining, not liberating. Anybody want to say anything about that up to this point? Yeah, we can't hear you. If you unmute it.
Quoting from a New Testament passage.
Okay.
I don't do it very often, but here's one that I remember when I was a Christian. This is in James chapter 1. The one who looks intently at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer, this man will be blessed in what he does.
Wow.
So it's a pretty good verse. And to the side of it, I have the word freedom, uh, herut, and
Beirut. Yeah.
graven, harat, and a note that engraving causes borders, and borders bring freedom. And there's a little story about a elementary school where the children played all the way out from the school building all the way out to the edge of the property, right at the fence line. But they were doing some work on the road, the highway, and they had to take out part of the fence. So now there's no fence there.
Uh-oh.
But it scared the children, so they stayed all up by the schoolhouse. They wouldn't go out into the playground uh, towards the fence because that boundary was taken away, and they felt more restricted. When the boundary was there, when the fence was there, they felt the freedom to go out and play.
Interesting, interesting. When did James live?
James, I don't know. I don't remember what year they say that the book of James was written. I don't
Okay.
know.
I wonder if the teaching comes from the Talmud. I don't know. I don't know what his time period is. Talmud is about 100 to 300, 350, 400.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or it could have been
He's,
independent thought as well. I mean,
he's before that.
it's what?
He's before that.
He's
The
before
book of
that.
James. Yeah, the book of James is earlier than that.
Is earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an interesting parallel. I mean, so when the rabbis say, don't say this word, rather say that word, that kind of a debate arises because when you look in the actual Torah scroll, there are no punctuation marks that tell you how to read the word. So you can read it either as harut, engraved, or cherut, liberating. And there are dozens of examples where the rabbis teach, don't read it this way, rather read it another way in order to arrive at another teaching. But it's the same letters. It probably has its plain meaning, but if you change a little bit of the punctuation under or over the Hebrew letters, you come up with a whole different message. And I think that's where they were going in this kind of a teaching. Don't read it this way, rather read it that way. Anyway, so again, as an Orthodox Jew, I would not necessarily say that it's liberating, just the way I described it. So some say because it's so restrictive, whatever we find restrictive in our faith tradition and the way we practice it, because it's so restrictive and has boundaries, like you mentioned with the playground, we have to make less decisions about what to do. You get a clarity, a clarity about what to do. A Torah follower or a follower of a faith text has a clear direction and senses what he's doing is right. Why? Because it's in there. It's in there. So I don't have to be worried about am I making the right decision, the wrong decision? I have to make less decisions. It doesn't mean robotically follow. It does mean to say that the prescription is there. I'm going to my doctor for X ailment. he's telling me what I need to take. You need to take a this and a flaxamycin and a cocazacin and all these kind of things. You take it one day, three times a day, one times a day, whatever. It has these following ingredients. Thank God my doctor says, here's what you need, and you figure out the ingredients of it. No, liberate me from that. Tell me what exactly it is, and I'm liberated from having to worry and be concerned about what is it. So it's clarifying, and in the sense that it's clarifying, uh, to that degree, it is liberating. Um, so we follow the plan. There's a plan. We sense that we go by the rules, and we always make the best choice we can without being burdened by competing ways. Um, you know, especially when Jewish people live in a place where they can easily become assimilated or acculturated. Um, they have to choose between their Torah values and society's current value, fashions, styles, etc. If you don't have to deal with that, that's a kind of a liberation. And without the values of a faith-based education, etc., a person becomes a slave to their passions, the mores of society, or dominant and fashionable trends. Well, if you know exactly what you need to do and you know your mission exactly, you don't have to worry about should I, but maybe, oh, I thought, no, maybe, oh, you're relieved of that. So in that sense, it could be called liberating. Um, One commentary said we shouldn't think of Jewish law, and by extension, uh, the practices of other faiths and their texts. We shouldn't think of them as a burden. And for many, many years, there used to be a phrase, maybe it's still used in very religious or traditional circles, where parents would teach their kids the following Yiddish phrase. Yiddish phrase. You okay? Okay, Brooke? I give you some water. Would you like some water? It's going to ruin this computer, but
I have some water over here.
oh, okay. Um, here's what here, and now Bob has some water. We all have. Look at that! Isn't it's so suggestive? You show a cup of water and everybody's thirsty. Um, so the phrase in Yiddish is "schwer zu sein a Yid." It's hard to be a Jew. So, like when grandkids would say, "Oh, I don't want to do that," blah blah blah. I'd rather play with that instead of. So they used to be told, "Schwer zu sein a Yid." What can I tell you, my dear? It's hard to be a Jew, you know. And then it was discovered that that really kept away a lot of people from furthering their Jewish observance. Like it was drummed into them, perhaps without that desire to do so, drummed into them that Judaism is a tough religion. Yes, it's burdensome because it has a lot of value, meaning, etc. But it is hard to be a Jew. Um, but not everybody sees the beautiful aspects of it, and some people just see it as hard. So I'll give you an example. I have a brother, Ethan, lives in Wakefield, Rhode Island. I think it's Rhode Island. He is an ordained rabbi, and he wanted to create a list for his future prospective converts. A list of here's what he would like them to know and to follow. This is what you should follow as a prospective convert. And once you have all this information, etc., we can consider an actual formal conversion. So once a week now, ever since this war began, um, well, it's been about 6, 8 months actually. We do a once a week, weekly 1 hour Zoom, sometimes longer, chatting, how you doing, what's happening, blah, blah, what's going on in Israel, etc. So he was telling us that he wants to create this kind of a list. What would we recommend to put on such a list of things that you should master as much as you can to live life as a Jew? So we gave him a lot of different things. And then a couple of days later, it occurred to me, if you're only going to tell that to prospective converts, that may not be exactly the honey that draws people to come to it. I think you also have to accentuate and highlight what are some of the positive aspects of being a Jew. What are some of the benefits? What are some of the rewards of being a Jew? Not even necessarily spiritual. What's good about it? What's good about it? What's worth it to live a Jewish life? So my sister goes to speak to a group of seniors, Jewish seniors, about 20, 30 on Friday mornings every month. And she decided to ask them this question this last Friday morning. What do you consider, these are all Jewish people in their retirement years, what do you consider the positives of being Jewish that we should include on such a list? So my brother and I said, so what'd you get? She was there with a pad and a pen, writing down whatever great ideas they have. No hand went up. We said, Sue, no hand went up. No. And I asked him again in the nicest way. Can anybody mention what you feel are good, positive aspects of being a Jew and living a Jewish life on whatever level you live it? She said one person raised their hand and said, I like the gefilte fish. Okay. I don't know if that vindicates, being at Mount Sinai 3,338 years ago, but that she saw that as a practical benefit. She loves the gefilte fish. Anyway, my brother and I were both kind of surprised. So you would say, well, they're in their elderly years. They don't articulate as whatever. But that was a big shock and a surprise to both of us. So I've got a couple more teachings. Anything to say about this one? Um, Liberating, not liberating, seeing what are some of the positive aspects of the way you live your faith life, besides any restrictions that there might be, what are some like really good aspects of it? Um,
Well,
Anything to say about that?
I think that it is liberating because it depends on your perspective how you look at
Right,
it. So
right.
if you look at it as, oh boy, I love God, I want to please Him and do these things, I know my boundaries, so what I can and can't do. So it looks to me, it's pleasing, right? I mean, I want to please Him. I'm not doing it because I have to do it. I do it because I want to do it.
Right.
And I think that the biggest thing is the mindset of it. And it can people say, oh, that's putting you in bondage or whatever. It's not though, because Shabbat comes. I can't go outside and do yard work. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's fine because I don't want to have to do it anyway.
Right.
So I look at it in a positive sense instead of the negative way of looking at it. And I think it is liberating. It is
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah. I agree with you. It, yeah. Bob, what did you want to add?
I agree with Brooke. As a Christian, you had to be so concerned about not sinning. Everything was a sin, and you don't want to sin, and you know. But some of the teachings that we've heard when we were in Jerusalem is the commandments aren't, if you missed one or didn't keep it or whatever, as the focus wasn't on you sinned and now you're in trouble. It was you missed the opportunity to connect with God. And so next time, that opportunity comes available, you can try to connect with God. It is the focus was not sin, it was opportunities to connect with
Nice.
God.
Nice.
And so it just changed the whole way of looking at the commandments.
It's a very nice way of saying it. This week, we read the weekly Torah portion of Vayikra, which begins a few portions about the sacrificial system. What kind of sacrifice do you bring for this sin, this indiscretion, this one, and that one? It's pretty extensive, and if you have something called the Stone Chumash, the Stone Five Books of Moses, at the very back pages, it gives you charts about Back then, if you committed this, this is what you bring. And for this, you bring a turtle dove with mixed with oil and whatever it is. But the word for sacrifice is the word korban, korban, which comes from the word karov, which means to get closer. When we sin, we forfeit a closeness. When you sin, you feel a little bit of a distance if you did something that was unpleasing to God. In the same way that if you have a fight or an argument with somebody and you end up in the same supermarket and you're both in aisle 8 and you see them down at the end of the aisle, you quickly go to aisle 9, or aisle 11 just to get far away from them because now you feel that something has happened, you feel a distance. And this korban, this bringing of the offerings, is an opportunity to reconnect. Why it involves animals, I don't know. But it's an opportunity where you create a distance, here's an opportunity to shorten the distance back or eliminate the distance altogether. So I like that idea that where there is sin, there's also an opportunity to reconnect and get to that closeness again. Which is interesting because, God gives the Jewish people this holy day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, once a year. He clearly knows that we're going to bungle up during the year at some point. We're going to bungle up, and here's once a year. I mean, one can repent any time of the day and any day of the week. But he realizes, he made us, he knows us. And he realizes that we're going to mess up here and there, and he gave us these opportunities to reconnect and get closer. He did not expect perfection. And when you lack perfection, there's ways and opportunities to kind of get back into the graces, as they would say. Okay, just a couple of more quick teachings that we have. God says in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 12, he says, I have given you a good teaching, lekach tov. I have given you a good teaching. Do not forsake my Torah. I've given you a gem. I've given you a diamond. I've given you a brightly polished, uh, very worthwhile, expensive, but not monetarily. I've given you something that is going to be good for you in this world and the next world. It pays off in both worlds. Don't forsake it. I've given you something so good and precious. Don't just ignore it. Okay? So that's the verse in Proverbs 4, verse 12. Um, it's a statement that we make in the synagogue whenever the Torah is being put back into the ark. Anytime that the Torah is read, festivals, Shabbat, Monday mornings, Thursday mornings, Shabbat mornings and afternoons, there's a celebration of having read it and putting it back in the ark. And this is one of the things that we say, God, you have given us this whole enterprise called the Torah and your laws and commandments. You have given this to us as a beautiful, precious teaching. We'll do our best to not forsake it or ignore it. So, interestingly enough, many rabbis, mostly Hasidic rabbis, right before Rosh Hashanah, the new year, they are available either in the synagogue or at their home, and their followers come to them to get a piece of cake. Cake that probably was made, who knows? Did they make it? Did their wives make it? Did they buy it from the bakery? I couldn't tell you. But they want their followers to come and taste something sweet. So it's often something with honey. It could be a honey cake. It could be any kind of a pastry that has honey on top. And that piece of what they give each handed over personally to their followers, that piece has become known as lekach. Lekach, which is exactly the same term used in Proverbs 4:12. I have given you a good, precious gift. So even that term comes in when they hand over a piece of something that they, as the leadership, have touched. They want you to have it personal. And this, they're not saying this piece of honey cake is as precious as the Torah. That's not what they're saying. But they are saying, I want you to always connect sweetness with the Torah. Always connect sweetness. There is an old tradition, maybe it's still done in some schools, where once the children learn the letter Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, once they learn the first letter Aleph, they pass around pages to the students with the big letter Aleph on it, and they before they hand it to the students, they dab the corner with honey, and they say to the students, "Let's taste the honey. Taste the honey that's on the page with the Aleph." And again, it's a way of saying to them, you should always know the sweetness of Torah, Torah study, a faithful spiritual life, and it should always be connected with sweetness. So that's a very, very beautiful idea. Um, Many people who are very involved in the study of the Torah, I'm not talking 12 hours a day, it could be 5 minutes a day, it could be a half hour, an hour, listening to a video, whatever it is. Many people find the satisfaction of studying it and finding nuances that they never thought of before that enriches them. Many find that even more precious than winning a lottery. So, yeah, so Elon, name somebody that thinks that way. I can name you many times in my lifetime where I felt that I just heard a message from this rabbi or this scholar, whatever, men, women, that has really penetrated my heart and has made a difference in the way I do things from that point on. It was transformational. And just knowing that new nuance, that new lesson, that new way of looking at, that new perspective is as tasty as winning the lottery, which is not easily understood. Most people would say, I'd rather win the lottery, and that would be sufficient for me. But I find it's true. I find it's true. It is a great, precious gift. And especially when we see something new, transformational, ain't nothing like it. So before we get to the very last teaching, anybody have any commentary on that? I've given you a precious gift. Uh, don't abandon it. Don't put it on the back shelf. Get involved in it. Do the best you can. Immerse yourself in it, no matter what time period. Look for the nuances. Become inspired. Any commentary on it, any of those aspects? Okay. So last thing that we'll look at. It says in chapter 6, Mishnah or teaching number 5. I'll say it in Hebrew, then I'll say it in English. Al tevakesh gedula la'atzmecha. Don't ask people to aggrandize you. Ve'al tachmod kavod, and don't seek after honor. Meaning, if you are a great student, a great scholar, a great rabbi, a great male or female, don't expect thunderous applause and confetti and a parade because of what you are and what stature you've arrived at. Other people want to say something about you, fine, but don't you walk around expecting adulation and just a big party every time you walk into the room. Now, it doesn't say it here, but in another place, it says it in Pirke Avot. Why not? If you've achieved and accomplished so much, why not, walk around with your fingers in your suspenders and think of yourself as, boy, I am really something. By the way, there are many rabbis, theologians, and in all different faiths that really have mastered amazing, amazing knowledge. But the warning is don't get yourself so pedestaled over it. Others want to do that, that's their business. But you don't go seeking honor. Why? It says in another place in Pirke Avot, Ki lakach notzarta. This is why you were created. You were created to immerse yourself as much as you can. That's your job. That's your mission. And don't be so proud of yourself if you're accomplishing your mission. This is what you were meant to do. So don't walk so, look where I am. Look at the awards I just got. Um, so don't think of yourself as great due to the amount of uh, study that you've amassed or the observance of the Torah or faith tradition and faith text that you've mastered. Don't seek self-glorification and self-honor. This is your mission, and we don't do it for applause. So I'll tell you where I always cringe, and then I'll ask you if you have any comments about any of that, and then we'll call it a day. I always cringe when I hear living rabbis being described as the great, the holy one, the elevated scholar in their own publications. This is publication they usually pass about on Friday nights, so you have Shabbat reading to do. They will say this was edited or produced by the great, the venerable, the esteemed, and then they'll mention the name. And I always say to myself, why did the editor about whom has this description, why didn't they say to their people, don't put that in? You know what I'm saying? Leave that out. That's not what I'm in this game for. I don't need that adulation. And it's improper to make me feel that I need it. So I always wonder why they allow these kinds of, glorifications of themselves in their own publications. It makes me cringe all the time. I always cringe also when a clergy extends their hand or a ring to be kissed.
Hmm.
In Hasidic circles, the Hasidim, the followers go by their rabbi Shabbat morning or wherever, and they kiss his hand. It's something I don't get. I think it catapults the rabbi's ego or whoever it is a little too much. To kiss a hand, I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me, but I imagine there are other sides to that. And I always cringe when rabbis discuss the overflow audiences of recent lectures that they gave. Or they say, oh, today, this is my sixth lecture today. The first five I gave in these cities. And thank God there was just standing room only in these gigantic halls. To me, you've just crossed a line somewhere between being humble and raising yourself in the eyes of the people. These things make me cringe. Are there other ways to look at it? I'm sure. But anyway, it's a warning to spiritual people to not get too hoity-toity. Is that anybody still use that phrase? Don't get so, you know, you walk into a now the truth of the matter is there's a certain level of rabbi that when they go to a wedding, they go to whatever, they step up to the podium to speak, everybody stands. I'm okay with that. Everybody stands, they give honor. I'm good with that. I mentioned this to a senior group yesterday, and they said where they grew up, and in the senior group is about 20 people, they all grew up in different countries. They said, where we grew up, you even stood for the math teacher. No teacher could come in without the students standing for them. I said, math, geography, science? Yeah. It was unheard of to not stand for your teacher. So I get that. I get that showing that level of respect. But let's say to demand it or to describe it in a way where others should think of you as a hoity-toity, I don't know. It's uncomfortable for me. So, having said that, uh, any closing comments, observations, anecdotes, theories?
Yeah, I always believe that you don't place yourself in a position of authority or honor, but if you're asked to be put there, like at a table, you sit down at a table. You don't sit beside the honorable guest at the table, right? You might sit at the other end of the table or in the middle or whatever.
Yeah,
But if you place yourself there, then you think more highly of yourself than you should, versus you're asked to sit there,
right.
and raised you to a level of honor, by
Yeah,
doing so. So
that
that's how I
sounds
kind
very
of,
different.
yeah.
Very different than demanding to be seated with X, Y, and Z. So my lot in life is that whenever my wife and I go to any celebrations and their table numbers and assigned seating and all that, 9 out of 10 times we get put with other rabbis and their wives. I'll be honest with you, the last place I want to be with my wife at a celebration is with other rabbis and their wives. It's not that I don't like them. I don't know. It wouldn't matter who they are, but no, put me with the average common Gesang, I think is a German word. Put me with the average Joe and Joanne. Well, I want to sit now and discuss fine points of Jewish law in between my gefilte fish and roast chicken. I don't know. It's a night out. Yeah, yeah. Brooke, I hear exactly what you're saying. Yeah, if they place you there, that's one thing, but for you to like want or demand to be placed with the hoities and the toities, that's a whole different ballgame. Uh, Bob, any closing arguments? No? Okay, good. All right, so we've come to the end of our time. I appreciate both of you being here and accommodating to today instead of yesterday. Um, God willing, we will be back next Wednesday night. God willing, everything should be good, calm, quiet, etc. And then we take our couple of weeks break because of Passover, and then during Passover, my wife will create some kind of which I've promised before, some kind of a quick 1-minute survey questionnaire. How often, if often, what topic do you want to continue, not want to continue, once a month, 7 times a week, whatever. She'll ask these kind of questions and we'll see if there's any consensus about how, when, who, what to proceed. But it's so next week I'll give you what I think are for me 5 of my most important takeaways from Pirke Avot. You may want to, those who are now here and those who are listening, God willing, may want to think of your own favorite 1 or 2 that stick out for you and for which you were grateful to hear all about. Um, and that will end our study of Pirke Avot. So just be well, have a great day, be happy, healthy, and safe. And as we chug along towards Passover. So take care, everybody. Be well. Shabbat
Okay.
Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings on your heads.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Blessings.
And same to you.
Thank you.
Yep.